Okay, so first we add the walnuts. Make sure they are dry if you have sprouted them first, because otherwise they won't blend into a flour-like consistency. Here you go, how you can see them right here. Okay, so then I add them to the bowl, ready to add the rest of the mix to them. You can see here, they're almost like the flour. Okay, so now I'm using the dates. I'm opening them up and taking the seeds out. It is better if you soak these first. Things are often a bit hectic for me with the children, so I don't always do things how I want. If you do pre-soak them, then it's good to also use the water you soak them in, because that's pretty sweet. Okay, you can see I just added the vanilla here, and then I'm using some carob powder. I do prefer to buy the carob freshly picked, but I wasn't able to get any on this occasion. Okay, so next I'm adding the water. You want to be careful not to add too much because you don't want this to be runny. Sometimes less is better, and then you can always add more if it doesn't blend well enough. Okay, so here you can see the kind of consistency I was looking for. So I add this, and I also put some extra carob in with the walnuts because I wanted to make sure it had that good flavor. So I'm mixing this all up. You see it's all really mixed good now. Then I need to get the, oh yeah, look, you can see the baby's been helping me. See, this is why I don't get to always do things quite how I'd like, because they're always there ready to assist me. Okay, so yeah, next you need the pans. I was using small ones on this occasion, but you could make a bigger one, but you'd obviously need more mix. You actually need to do this twice. I had 2 pans, as you probably saw, although I only show putting it into 1 pan. So I put it into the pan. You need to make sure it covers the whole bottom of the pan, because then you don't want the next layer seeping down to the bottom. It just won't be right. I don't show this in the video, but I actually put these in my dehydrator, so it makes them more like a cook-like consistency. But you can just put it in the refrigerator or the freezer instead. It will just be a slightly different consistency. Okay, so now you can see that I'm getting the next layer ready. So I'm adding the dates in here. Again, it would be better if you pre-soak them and then use the date water when you blend them. So I'm just making sure I take out all the stones from the dates. And you can see I've got my other child helping me here. He's almost 3 in this video. Okay, so you need I think I used about a whole pack of dates here, although I think I did have some left over because I was only making a small cake. And you can see me adding the water. Again, don't add too much. It's better to add less, and then if you're having problems blending it, add a little bit more. And the carob powder again, as my daughter wanted it to be a chocolate flavor, so we compromised with carob because I feel that's slightly better for her. Okay, here's the vanilla. Always use the whole vanilla bean, not the vanilla extract that has alcohol in it. Always better to use the whole plant. Okay, and you see then my toddler wants to put some in too. There we go. And then he's actually playing with the sea moss. The sea moss I've pre-soaked because then it blends much better. The sea moss helps to give it a good consistency and helps it to gel up a little bit better. And it's also super nutritional. You should look up about sea moss if you don't already use it. We use purple moss from Purple Moss Paradise. Here you go. Here's it now. It's all blended up. Okay, so this time you don't actually need it as a separate date paste like before. I just prefer to blend them up first because they blend a lot better that way when you blend them up, sort of on their own. Okay, so now I'm adding the walnuts. These have been pre-soaked and are slightly wet in texture. That makes sure they blend better, and you should be pre-soaking anyway, like I kind of mentioned before, because that sprouts them. Okay, so now I'm adding some water. Again, don't add too much because you don't want this to be too runny or it won't work. You can always add a bit more if it doesn't blend right. You see, here you go. This is what it looks like once it's blended. And you can see more of the consistency it needs to be, so it's holding its shape. Okay, so you need to make sure you spread this all around so it goes to the edges. This makes it more aesthetically pleasing and make sure everybody gets some when you cut the cake later. And because of this consistency, you can refrigerate this and serve this like this. If it was at all runnier, then you definitely want to do this as a frozen dessert. Now, if you do prefer it as a frozen dessert, you can also freeze this anyway and serve it that way. Okay, so now I'm adding the cherries on. You don't really need to place these on in an aesthetically pleasing way, because these are inside the cake and you don't really see how they're spaced out when you cut it, I don't think. But you do want to make sure there's a fairly even amount everywhere to make sure everybody gets a similar amount of cherries when you cut the cake. So now I've got the top layer that I've already taken out of the pan. You see it's set quite nicely after being in the dehydrator. You might want to have frozen this if you're not putting it in the dehydrator. So I'm carefully putting it on top, and then you want to make sure you press it down nicely all the way around so it will hold together when you take it out of the pan later. Okay, so next I've obviously got to take it out the pan. So you say take it out carefully. Say if it's too runny, then you definitely want to have frozen this so it will never hold together. You see, I'm just carefully taking it out, praying it stays together. Okay, then you can see it all here. You see all the nice layers. And put this on the plate. There we go. I'm quite relieved it held together nicely. See, this was the first time I ever did this. I just made it up as I went. So it's always relief when these things work, which they normally do. And here you go. I'm showing you all around the edges so you can see what it looks like all the way around. Okay, so now what I'm putting on top is the same as what I put in the middle, that walnut date carob vanilla cream. And I'm just going to spread this roughly all over the top. I'm not really a cake decorator, so I'm not an expert at making it look super pretty. Hopefully that's something I can work on in the future. But yeah, I just spread it roughly around. I thought about putting on the edges too, but I quite liked being able to see the layers, so I didn't. But you could spread it all the way around the edges too. Okay, so now I'm adding the cherries on top. I would have added these in a more decorative way than I did, but because it was my daughter's 13th birthday, I was putting them on to make the number 13 to represent the age she was. So yeah, I would have probably put them much differently, but I thought this was cute as I didn't have any kind of decoration that said 13, so I thought this would be nice for her. And then when I'm done with this, I decided just to add a little bit more of a touch by adding some walnuts around the edges, as you're about to see. You don't obviously have to add the walnuts if you don't want to. Or you could even make the walnuts tastier by brushing them with a little date syrup, and then you could dry them in the dehydrator and they'd be kind of like candied walnuts. But in this instance, I didn't do that. There you go. I'm just finishing up here, almost ready to serve it. Here you go. There it is. So now I'm going to cut the cake for everyone, and then you can see how it holds together when I cut it. Another thing is always a relief is when I cut these kind of cakes and they hold together, which they normally do. It's all about making sure it's the right consistency, that, you know, it's not too runny. I mean, sometimes if they have been kind of runnier, then I just freeze them and we have them like a frozen dessert, kind of like an ice cream cake. But this one wasn't frozen and we really enjoyed it that way. Here you go. You can see how it holds up. There you can see the layers, how it's got the cherries in it. I was quite happy with how this turned out. There you go again, you can see. Cuts quite nicely. Here you go, you can see all the way through the middle. And the slices of cake that I cut, they're laid out ready for everyone. Everyone really enjoyed this. I was really pleased how it turned out. And Kaylin liked this much more than the cheesecakes I make, actually. Okay, and here you go. You see, she loved it. The birthday girl. Okay, and so this here is something I'm making a bonus video of. I used the remaining ingredients I had and made another simple cake, almost like a cheesecake, but a little different. So look out for that video. And thanks for watching. Please give this a thumbs up if you like the video, and please do subscribe. I've got a lot more coming. I know I took a big break from making videos, but I'm definitely back and you're not going to want to miss them. Thank you so much for watching.